Hello YouTube, welcome to the 9th episode of Suggestion Showcase, where today I will be reviewing another suggestion by Avro Vulcan XH558. Today we will be talking about the Hawker P.1121 Hurricane. Let's get started. The Hawker P.1121 was a design for a strike fighter based off of the designs that were rejected for a requirement for an interceptor requirement being tendered in Britain in the mid to late 1950s. The Royal Air Force was uninterested in the type, and an order from them was unlikely. Yet, Hawker persevered and began the construction of a prototype, but to no avail. The P.1121 was only partially constructed and it never flew. Origins. The P.1121 story starts with the F.155T, a specification for a supersonic all-weather replacement for the Javelin, and eventually the Lightning. Most major aircraft companies in Britain undertook the task of designing a type that could meet the advanced and strict requirements, including Hawker, who tendered to the P.1103. The aircraft did not meet the performance requirement, so a rocket was added to help boost the speed. Because of this, the project was dismissed, amongst many others from Britain's foremost aircraft designers. The Ferry Delta III was chosen, as it met the requirements, and they were ordered to begin construction of a prototype. However, politics soon got into the mix. The Suez Crisis of 1956 brought about massive shocks and repercussions for the British political and military aspirations, and would forever change the landscape of both these spheres. In 1957, the then Defense Minister Duncan Sandys announced massive defense budget cuts to reduce the armed forces in size, to release numbers of services into the job market to help the economy grow. These defense cuts led to the immediate cancellation of all fighter programs, except the Lightning. In the UK, as these were viewed unnecessary and outdated in the face of ever more advanced surface-to-air missiles. The F.155T would have led to a project riddled with technical difficulties, as is evident from the procurement process alone. It would have been a massive strain on the economy, and there were no logical plans which properly set out the series production of the type. The project was highly ambitious from a technical perspective. Pull all accountants into a Cold War sweat, Britain's post-war economy could not sustain such a program. In order to visualize the requirements set out, the Delta III, the only aircraft that met the requirements in full, would have had similar performance to the MiG-25 from the USSR, which was of similar size too. From P.1103 to P.1121. The P.1103 was a single-engine type, which only used a rocket to boost performance. It carried an air intercept radar in the nose, requiring an observer who sat behind the pilot. When Hawker was dismissed from the competition, they immediately set out to modify the design for other purposes. This began with the 1116, which had a new wing with reduced wing sweep and length, and had a rocket motor deleted. This design eventually evolved into the P.1121, which was to be a multi-role type. By now, little trace of the original P.1103 remained. It was designed as a thoroughbred interceptor, while its descendants, the P.1116 and the P.1121, were designed as strike fighters. The P.1121 was tendered as both a tentative Hunter and Canberra replacement. However, the Royal Air Force wanted a supersonic VTOL aircraft, which became another stillborn project from Hawker, the P.1154. The Hunter wasn't truly replaced until the arrival of the Phantoms and the Harriers. The Canberra replacement was heavily modified to meet the requirements, and thus designation P.1123. However, not all the specifications were met, mainly for the range and requirement. The Canberra replacement program eventually led to the TSR-2. Both the P.1154 and TSR-2 were cancelled in 1964 under the new Labour government. With the Royal Air Force uninterested in the project, Hawker kept the project alive by using their own money, in the hope of an export order. It was also hoped that if an export order materialized, the Royal Air Force was considering ordering it. Therefore, Hawker soldiered on and even stated that, quote, "The project is going very well. It will be remembered that before the war we undertook, as a private venture, the development of the Hawker Hurricane, and we believe that the same kind of private initiative should be shown in present circumstances." The project's demise. However, it was not to be. The Hurricane, as the P.1121 was sometimes referred to, was, in the eyes of many of the air staff, surplus to requirements, despite CAM receiving encouragement from Air Marshal Tuttle, which meant that a prototype began construction. As a fighter, the aircraft did not meet the requirements of the air staff that were insisted in. They still had performance similar to that they had wished for in the F.155T in mind. An order from the Royal Air Force was always unlikely, if it were to be used as a fighter, as the P.1121's ancestor. The P.1103 was dismissed on grounds that it didn't meet the speed and range requirements, and it had a rocket to boost it. The P.1121 did not. The Royal Air Force wished, as previously mentioned, that the VTOL aircraft should be the main strike element. This meant that the ground attack role was left for the P.1154, with no exports orders incoming. The project was forced to stop. What was built was shipped to the Cranfield College of Aeronautics in 1961 before being moved to the Royal Air Force Museum at Crossford, where it remains today, in a hangar in storage out of public eye, where it is slowly being forgotten by the general public. It is truly a sad ending for such a promising aircraft. Conclusion. This aircraft should be in game as a reminder to a grey plane that never was, a product with loads of potential that never got to fly, and is now slowly being eroded from the memories of many, and is now only a footnote in history of aviation. This aircraft never got to fly in real life, but I hope it would be a given chance to fly in a virtual world, thus exposing it to a wider audience, giving it the attention it truly deserves, as a tribute to Sidley Cam and all those who worked on the project. So let's talk about the specifications of this aircraft. The manufacturer was Hawker Siddeley Aviation by United Kingdom. Maximum speed was 2,394 km an hour at 36,000 feet, or 1,488 miles an hour, or 1,300 km an hour at sea level. The type was a fighter bomber. Range was 1,930 km or 1,200 miles. Description: pretty supersonic fighter taken to stage of unfinished prototype aircraft and was financed by Hawker itself. Ferry range not available. Cancelled in 1958. Ceiling not available. Engine 1 de Havilland Gryon. Climb rate is not available. Thrust 89 kilonewtons of thrust or 20,000 pounds of force by a de Havilland Gyron PS263 dry thrust, or the 20.1 kilonewtons of thrust or 27,000 pounds of force by a de Havilland Gyron PS263 with reheat. Armament: guns 30mm, rockets 50 times 50.8mm or 2 inches, missiles 2 red tops. The length was 20.27 meters or 66 feet 6 inches. It had a crew of 1. The span was 11.28 meters or 37 feet, and the radar was an AL.23. Height would be 4.51 meters or 14 feet 10 inches. Loaded weight would be 19,730 kilos or 43,500 pounds. Number built: 1 mock-up and 1 unfinished prototype. So my closing remarks about this aircraft: I feel like it should be added into the game, but as an event vehicle only. It's basically a worse Lightning, I feel like. With the amount of thrust it has, and the type of radar and missiles and gun, and how heavy it is, I feel like it would just be kind of like another Lightning, I guess. It would be like a worse Lightning, and it would look much different. But still, I feel like it should only be as an event vehicle. It doesn't fit in the tech tree, in my opinion. And because it never got to flew, I don't think it's ever going to be added to War Thunder unless they change their agenda of what aircraft they add. So, yeah. Cool event vehicle, but only as an event vehicle. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Suggestion Showcase. Make sure to go +1 every Vulcan's post in the description. And I'll see you guys next time.